Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loko Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loko Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunana Bhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Praptasya Kalyana Gunana Bhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu ki Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shringara Tanma Niramajanado Shri Vigrahara Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Juktasya Bhaktamsa Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satanna Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satanna Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Vidaiva Trupte Bhajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vidaiva Trupte Bhajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Radhikama Bhavayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Shri Radhikama Bhavayara Para Madhurya Leela Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Pratikshana Vande Guru Shri Charanara Nekunjayono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bhiri Yuktir Apekshaneya Nekunjayono Ratikeli Tatrati daksha atibara bhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Sakcha Dharitena Shamasta Shashre Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Sadhave Sakya Dharitena Shashre Uktastatha Bhavyataiva Kintu Pravorja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Jayantu Vantasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Dayam Suvantasya Yasatin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Vande Guru Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatade Satarine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravane Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatade Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hey, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hey, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Go. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hariyaraya Namah, Krishna Jadavaya Namah, Jadavaya Madhavaya Kesavaya Namah. Gopal Govindaram Shrimadusudam, Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan, Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita, Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita, Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Radha Nila Madhava Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Jagannath Baladeva Subhadrama Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Sitaram Nitai Gaur Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo Nitai Gaura Pramanande Jaya Vishwapara Paramitra Ashtottara Sarashishi Maharish Kon Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Ceremony Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prima Bhakti Datta Parita Pavana His Divine Grace Abhacharavina Bhakti Viranta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Ki Jai Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patitu Dhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadguru Swami Prabhu Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Prem Si Kaho Si Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Si Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Pramanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shman Gauranga Si Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhani Nam Sankitan Jai Ki Jai Jugadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihad Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagupna Radha Kund Samakund Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurudham Ki Jai Deloship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Navadvip Ekachakradham Ki Jai Paramakaruna Shri Gaur Nitaya Ki Jai Shri Purushottam Ketra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Swami Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Srimati Radharani Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanande all glory to the Assembly Bodies all glory to the Assembly Bodies all glory to the Assembly Bodies all glory to Shri Guru Shri Guru
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Prahlada Singaya Prahlada Daine Hiranyakasipu Vaksha Silatangka Nakalaye Ito Nisinga Parata Nisinga Jato Jato Jami Tato Nisinga Bayini Singa Rudayini Singa Narasinga Madim Sarana Prabhade Tabakara Kamalabade Nakam Adabhuta Singa Lalita Hiranyakasipu Tanavinga Kesavadita Nararirupa Jagadisare Jai Jagadisare Jai Jagadisare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Pralanara 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 Jaya Pralanara Jai Jai Prabhupada 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Jai Shri Bhakti Padat Sarvignash Nakal Shingare Bhagavan ki Jai Bhakta Shrestha Prahlad Maharaj ki Jai Jai Gaura Di Pramanande Hari Haribo Shri Vrindaye Tulasi Debai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah Vrindaye Tulasi Debai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namah Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
Namo Nama Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo.
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Nama
Tulasi Krishna Prayasi Namo Namo.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Eya Vilasi.
Radha Krishna Seva Pavo Hey Abhilashi
Radha Krishna Seva Prabhu Eya Vilasi.
Shaitomaya Shayana Loy Tara Vanshapurna
Jitomara Sharanalai Taravancha Purna.
Kripa Kori Koro Tare Vrindavanavasi
Tumi kripa kori karatare Vrindavanavasi.
Moraya Vilas Vilas Kunjadiyava
Moraya Vila Vilas Kunja Diyava.
Nayane Heri Bhaksada Shugala Ruparasi
Aminayane Reva Sada Jugala Ruparasi.
Hey Nivedana Taro Sakiranugata Koro
Eni Vedana Dhara Sakirayanu Gatakara.
Sevadikara Diye Koro Nijadasi
Seva Yadi Kara Diye Koro Nijadasi.
Dina Krishna Dasi Koi Eye Namora
Dina Krishna Daseka Eye Namora.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi.
Shri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi
Sri Radha Govinda Preme Sadaye Navasi.
kani cha papani Brahma jati kani cha Tani tani prana shanti Pradakshina pade pade
Kani kani sapapani Brahma hatari kani sa Tani tani prana santi Pradakshina pade pade Jani kani sapapani Brahma hatani kani sa Tani tani prana santi Pradakina pare pare
Gani gani cha papani Brahma jati kani cha Tani tani prana shanti Pradakshina pade pade
Jani kani sapapani Brahma hatani kani sa Tani tani prana santi Pradakshina pare pare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani.
Jaya Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani, Tusi Maharani, Jaya Tusi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda
It's
Devi.
a Gora Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, it's a Gora Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavata Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavata Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulai Priyai Kesava Satya Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavatai Namo Namaha. Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled, bestowing your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Kavya damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govind. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Datpanamarjanam Bhavamada Bhagni Nivapanam Shreyakari Bachandrika Vitaranam Vidyavadu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Padipadam Purnamrita Swadanam Sarvatmasnam Parampara Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Baudha Ida Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pitani Amita Shmarane Nakala Ita Jishitava Pipaya Bhagavan Mamati Trinada Pisunichena Tarora Pisa Ishana Amanina Manadena Kitaniya Sadahari Na dhanam na janam na sundarim Kavitamba jagadisha kamaye Mama janmani janmanishwari Bhavatar bhakti rahituki tvai Ainandatanu jakinkaram Patitamam vishame bhavambudo Kripaya tapapada pankaja Stita dhuli sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galara shrudharaya Vadanam gadagadarudhaya gira Pulakarinchitam vapu kada Tavanama grahane bhavisyati Juga itam nimishena Chakshusha pravrusa itam Sunya itam jagata sarvam Govinda viraye name Asli sabha padaratam pinastumam Adarshana manmatam karotuva Jata tathava vidara tulam pato Mat pranatastu saivana para Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shikhastakam Ki Jai Namo Varanaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaura Krishna Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prestaya Muttanishmati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravane Pracharine Nivashesha Shunavadi Prasatyari Satam. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life or repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we are always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself a Lord and stroll in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want you, because the devotion saves birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. If someone rather have fallen in this ocean of birth and death, please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up and will the hairs of my body stand on end the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering one to be like 20 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain,
and I am feeling all vacant in the world in your absence.
I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so. Even if sunders him roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted when not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating holy names of the Lord.
2.
To consider names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent names of Lord Vishnu. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. To give some interpretation of Krishna's imagination. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Do not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names and to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now, those who are most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, they are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa tarabhyascha kripasindabhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha vaishnava thakur ki jai. Namo om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddha Srimad Bhakta Swadhyaya Namaste Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sapritam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Jitaha Pachakamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shah Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Sabadutam Parichana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamine Shivasavani Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Madaha Madhur Utwala Primadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasidanta Dvantaharine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidanandanamine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Goravir Bhava Bhimistvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Sri Jagannathayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Turabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurachase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Surator Pangur Mama Manda Matergati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyat Vindaranya Kalpadramadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prastali Bihisevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasaran Bivam Sivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswaner Gopir Gopinatakstriye Strinam Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Brahma Samiti Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Bhaktivinoda and Adi Radhi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksa Vrite Susurabhira Vipaliyantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasam Brahma Sevyamanam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kwanantam Aravinda Dalayataksam Varhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesa Sobam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalyavam Siratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shalmam Tibanga Lalitani Taprakasam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purisham Navayovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragam Yova Yoratapi Manaso Manipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prabhavasim Yavicintya Tatve Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagadanda Kotim Yas Jakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Dio Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusa Suktarya Meva Nigama Pratitaistavanti Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasat Pratibhavita Vistabirya Even Nijarupa Tayakalavi Goloka Even Vasata Kilatma Bhutto Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charit Bhakti Viluchanena Santaksa Deva Hidesa Vilokayanti Yam Sama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupa Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menitista Nanavatara Makarod Bhuvanesa Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumamyo Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhuto Jagadanda Koti Koti Svasesa Vasudadi Vibhuti Menam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantamasesa Bhutam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Mayahi Yasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Traigunya Tad Visaya Veda Vadai Manam Yitsatva Balambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmayara Satmataya Manasuya Prani Nam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya Lila Yatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka Namni Nijadamni Talechitasya Devi Maheswari Dama Suteshu Teshu Tete Prabhavini Chaya Vitasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shishtista Te Pralaya Sada Vasaktireka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Abhyasya Chitesta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesi Yoga Sanjayate Naitata Pritakasti Yasam Bhutam Apitata Samapaitikariat Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Departure Vita Santanamabhupetya Dipayate Vivitehita Samana Dharma. Yes, Dharja gave Hicha Vishnuta Havibhati Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yat Karna Narna Vajale Bajisma Yoga Nidram Ananta Jagrana Saroma Kupa Adhara Satima Valabha Paranswamurtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yasyaikan Isvasita Kalamata Valambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagrandanata Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavisesu Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Basmanya Tasma Sakalesina Jesu Tejas Sriyam Kia Prakatayata Vitat Brahmaya Isa Jagranda Vidanu Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbadwande Pranama Samaya Sagradi Raja Vignan Vihantanam Namasya Jagatrayasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Agni Mahika Ganaman Bumaruti Sesta Galas Tatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sagalagrahanam Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Dharmo Tabapa Nichaya Sutayastapam Se Brahmadi Kita Patagava Desijiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakilapa Bhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Yasvindra Gopamatavindra Mahoswa Karma Bandhan Rupa Valabhajana Mahatanoti Karmani Nidhati Kintuja Bhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajam Yam Kroda Kama Saja Pranayadi Biti Vatsalya Moha Guru Vasevya Bhava Sanchintya Tasya Sadvisim Tanamapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kaputarva Jumabu Mishchintama Niganama Itoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chirinandam Jyoti Param Abitada Swatyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihit Sravati Srabi Vyasta Sumaha Nimesar Dakyuva Rajati Nahyatra Pisamaya Bajay Svita Dukram Tamaha Il Gola Kamitiam Vedantas Te Santaksati Virachara Katipaya Guru Vastaka Pirius Kujay. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest right to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. And for my respectful based on the Lotus Suit is such a spiritual master who's a notion of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gliding by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he's relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. Out for my respectful based on the Lotus Suit is such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shisha Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I, for my respectful basis, note the Lotus Suit is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotee is satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful basis, note the Lotus Suit is such spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful basis, note the Lotus Suit of such a spiritual master. Spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. For our most humble basis unto the Lotus Suit of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master to be honored amongst the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all real scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I have my respectful basis unto the Lotus Suit of such spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, I receive the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, I cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful basis unto the Lotus Suit of my spiritual master, his divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraja Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, Text number 6. Yata punaksve ka idam nivesya sete guhayam sanivrita vriti yogeswaradishwara eka etad anupravisto bahudaya dasit Yata, as much as, Puna, again, sway, in his K, form of space, Virat Rupa. Idam, this, Nivesya, entering into, Sete, lies down, Guhayam, within the universe, Sa, he, the personality of Godhead, Nivrita, without endeavor, Vritti, means of livelihood, Yoga Ishwara, the master of all mystic powers, Adishwara, proprietor of everything, Eka, one without a second, Etat, this, Anupravista, entering afterwards, Bahuda, by innumerable, Yata, as much as, Asid, exists. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He lies down on his own heart, spread in the form of the sky, and thus placing the whole creation in that space. He expands himself into many living entities, which are manifested as different species of life. He does not have to endeavor for his maintenance, because he is the master of all mystic powers and the proprietor of everything. Thus, he is distinct from the living entities. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The questions regarding creation, maintenance, and destruction, which are mentioned in many parts of the Srimad Bhagavatam, are in relation to different millenniums or kalpas, and therefore they are differently described by different authorities when questioned by different students. There is no difference regarding the creative principles and the Lord's control over them, yet there are some differences in the minute details because of different kalpas. The gigantic sky is the material body of the Lord called the Virat Rupa, and all material creations are resting on the sky or the heart of the Lord. Therefore, beginning from the sky, the first material manifestation to the gross vision, down to the earth, everything is called Brahman, Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma. There is nothing but the Lord, and He is one without a second. The living entities are the superior energies, whereas matter is the inferior energy. And the combination of these energies brings about the manifestation of this material world, which is in the heart of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. He lies down on his own heart, spread in the form of the sky, and thus placing the whole creation in that space. He expands himself into many living entities, which are manifested as different species of life. He does not have to endeavor for his maintenance, because he is the master of all mystic powers and the proprietor of everything. Thus he is distinct from the living entities. So here, this is one quality that no one else can emulate, that only God or Krishna has. And that is, there are actually two qualities. One is that he's distinct from all living entities because he has all mystic powers. And what are those mystic powers? Anima, Lagima, Garima, all these different mystic powers. He's smaller than the smallest, bigger than the biggest, heavier than the heaviest. And he has all these unbelievable qualities and powers. There are 8 mystic powers altogether. So no one is equal to or can emulate him, and no one is greater than him. So, and then secondly, he's the proprietor of everything. So these are two distinct qualities that distinguishes Krishna or God from all other living entities. He's the master of all mystic powers, and he's the ultimate proprietor of everything. So this is further explained by the Vedic aphorism, Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma. What does that mean? Well, let's look at the purport. The questions regarding creation, maintenance, and destruction, which are mentioned in many parts of Srimad Bhagavatam, are in relation to different millenniums or kalpas. So a millennium is a thousand cycles of 4 ages. And one cycle of 4 ages lasts 4,300,000 years. You take 1,000 cycles and you're running into the trillions of years. So therefore, there are 100 cycles of these 4 ages is called a kalpa. And therefore, they, meaning the kalpas, are differently described by different authorities when questioned by different students. There's no difference regarding the creative principles and the Lord's control over them, yet there are some differences in the minute details because of different kalpas. So, for example, Buddha appears in this cycle of 4 ages, but the real description of Buddha is Buddha in a previous kalpa. So there are slight differences between the Buddha that appears in this kalpa and Buddha that appeared in previous kalpas. So these minor differences are there, but there's no question of who is the creator of everything, that's Krishna, and who's the maintainer of everything, that's also Krishna. Okay, so the gigantic sky is the material body of the Lord called the Virat Rupa. So the Virat Rupa is a material body expanded by the Lord that contains the entire creation of the world. And therefore, nothing is independent of Krishna. At every point, Krishna is englobing everything, and at the same time, Krishna is present in everything, even down to the atom and into the heart of every living entity. So therefore, one cannot be in any way independent of Krishna. Most people don't realize this. They don't think this type of knowledge is important, and because of that, they remain engulfed by the laws of material nature, birth, death, old age, and disease, and they continually take birth in different species. There are 8,400,000 species, summarized as aquatics and plants and reptiles and birds and also mammals, and then human beings, and then demigods. So in these 8,400,000 species, which are counted amongst all the planets in the universe, not just the Earth, we go through all of them before we come to the human form, and even the human form, we can go through all of them. There are 400,000 different human forms until we come to a civilized human form. And it's only in the civilized human form that we can understand our relationship with God. What does it mean by civilized? One becomes civilized when they're engaged in regulative principles for making spiritual advancement. And that's called the Varna Ashrama system of social and spiritual organization. So you have 4 Varnas, or let's say they're divisions of people. And they are Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. Brahmanas are saintly people who are expert in the scriptures, and they teach other people how to live in the mode of goodness. And then the Kshatriyas are the administrators and military people who protect the population. And then the Vaishyas are the people who protect cows and engage in agriculture, and if they have excess agricultural products, they engage in trade and also banking. And then there are the Sudras. They are the common workers that cooperate with the three higher or three other classes or divisions of society. So in this way, they all cooperate with each other, and therefore there's maintenance, and there's food available for everyone, there's protection for everyone, and there's spiritual guidance. So then you have the ashramas. So you have varnas, are the divisions of society according to their work, and then you have the ashramas. Those are spiritual orders. You have brahmachari, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. So brahmachari is a celebrate student up to the age of 25 years. And when they get to be 24, 25, if they decide to get married, they become a grihastha. Or they might decide to remain celibate their whole life. And then the grihasthas are married couples, and they are usually married for at least 25 years, enough time to raise their children and to live a proper life, following the rules and regulations of spirituality. And then the husband and wife change their mode of living from being attached to a house and a family with children. Now their children are grown, so they break attachment to house and hearth and begin to travel together to different holy places. And they can continue traveling for many years, in fact, until the husband is fully trained and ready to lose all attachment to family, and the wife also. And therefore the wife lives with either her elder son or in a holy place, and lives a very strict life of renunciation. And the husband becomes an itinerant monk, living very, very austerely and preaching all the time. So the wife and the husband both live the same type of renounced life, but they separate also, so there's no material attachment, and they can both focus completely on their relationship with God. So this is the normal process by which people become elevated so far that they become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Okay, so Krishna is distinct from everyone else by many other qualities, but these two are very prominent, and that is, he's the master of all mystic powers, and he is the proprietor of everything. So this principle called Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma, there is nothing but the Lord, and he is one without a second. So what does this mean exactly? This is explained in Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 6th and 7th verse. Etad yonini bhutani sarvaniti upadaraya aham krishnasya jagata prabhava pralayas tata matak paratanam nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre ganimana iva. What does this mean? All created beings have their source in these two natures, the inferior material nature and the superior spiritual nature. So in other words, we have a body made of matter, but this body is only working because we have a soul, which is purely spiritual, which is the source of all energy coming from Krishna. So everything we see in this material world is a combination of matter and spirit. And that means everything is a combination of matter and spirit, even rocks and diamonds and things like that. Now, in the case of human beings, there are two spirits in the body of a human being, like my body or your body. Krishna is present as the overseer and permitter in the heart of the living entity, and our individual soul is present as the, let's say, temporary owner of the body. And we, as an individual, we are endowed with free will. limited free will. So our limited free will is limited to two choices in life. Either we follow Krishna's instructions or we don't follow. And Krishna, as the overseer and permitter, he's in the heart. And he is always with us. He's also in every atom of the universe. So he is he's present in everything. And at the same time, he's aloof from everything. So he has this transcendental qualities of simultaneous one and difference. And it's very difficult for most people to understand this, but devotees can understand it. Why do devotees understand these things and most people don't? It's because they drink milk. This is explained in the Bhagavad Gita and also in the important verse that we're going to study tomorrow. It says, the cow is the most important animal for developing the human body to perfection. The body can be maintained by any kind of foodstuff, but cow's milk is particularly essential for developing the finer tissues of the human brain so that one can understand the intricacies of transcendental knowledge. There it is right there. Right? But it has to be ahimsa milk, milk from cows that are protected, and they'll never be killed or eaten, and they're protected by genuine devotees. Just like we have, I think now we have like at least over 50 cows. And then we're also protecting another 70 cows at the dairy. So we're basically involved with at least 50 and 70, so 120 cows. Right? So it says, the body can be maintained by any kind of foodstuff, but cow's milk is particularly essential for developing the finer tissues of the human brain so that one can understand the intricacies of transcendental knowledge. Well, now we know that the vegans will not understand any of the intricacies of transcendental knowledge because they refuse to drink milk. You know. And then most people, they prefer Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola over milk. Just like in India, you know, you have Coca-Cola and Pepsi-Cola and Mecca-Cola all over the place, all the colas. And also coffee. Of course, sometimes they put a little milk in the coffee. And tea, in India, they put milk in the tea also. But for the most part, people are shying away from milk. And that's why more and more people are not able to understand anything spiritual. And then it says, a civilized man is expected to live on foodstuffs comprising of fruits, vegetables, grains, sugar, and milk. The bull helps in the agricultural process of producing grain, etc. And thus, in one sense, the bull is the father of humankind, whereas the cow is the mother, for she supplies milk to human society. A civilized man is therefore expected to give all protection to the bulls and cows. That's exactly what we do at all our farms. We have 3 farms, and we protect the bulls and the cows because the cow gives the ideal food for spiritual evolvement, and that is milk. And the bull helps to grow the grains and other services at the farm, such as grinding grain and also exacting or expelling oil from oil seeds like mustard seeds and other seeds. So the bull is very essential for farming. Okay, so coming back now to this Vedic aphorism, Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma, it says, therefore, beginning from the sky, the first material manifestation, to the gross vision down to the earth, everything is called Brahman. Sarvam Klav Idam Brahma. Well, what does Brahman mean? It means spiritual. So it's, therefore, the entire material energy and material elements, they are also spiritual. Although we usually think of something material as not being spiritual. But the energy that produces matter is spiritual and it's eternal, but it's considered Krishna's inferior spiritual energy, or apara prakriti. Prakriti means matter, and then apara means inferior spiritual energy. Why? Because the matter is eternal also, but it goes through two stages. It's avyakta and vyakta. It's sometimes manifest and sometimes not manifest. Whereas the spiritual energy is always manifest in the spiritual world, and that is para prakriti, superior spiritual energy. Okay, so we usually think of matter as being transitory or not eternal, but yet the scientists recognize that there's the law of conservation of energy and matter. That is implying that matter is eternal, because it's never diminished. It can change from one state to another state, but it always is, you can't destroy it, and in other words, it's eternal. So they also recognize that matter is a very special thing, and it has this durability because it can transform from energy to gross matter and gross matter back to energy. Okay, so therefore, what does this mean then? Sarvam klav idam brahma. It says, first of all, these two verses, 7th chapter, 6th and 7th verse, all created beings have their source in these two natures, the inferior and superior energies of the Lord, which both are eternal. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So Krishna is talking about himself here, and he says there's no truth superior to him, and that everything rests upon him as pearls are strung on a thread. So when you see a pearl necklace, you don't see the thread holding it, but yet it's there, otherwise it would fall apart right away. So that thread that keeps everything in a perfect or orderly working state is Krishna. So that therefore Krishna is keeping all the planets. We read the verses yesterday, how Krishna keeps all the planets in their orbits, perfect orbits, and they're gigantic planets and stars. The United States or Russia or China, they can put up a little Sputnik, or they can put up a little space station. That's nothing compared to the planets and stars that Krishna is maintaining in perfect order, perfect orbits all over the universe. And our universe is gigantic. It's according to the Vedas, it's 4 billion miles in diameter. That's huge, right? It's a huge expansion. And then beyond the visible universe are the 7 coverings of the universe, which are earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, and intelligence. So the scope, I mean, the what you call black matter, the matter that's englobing the universe, is much bigger than the visible matter in the universe. And the scientists recognize that also. They know that there's some type of covering of this universe, which they call black matter, but it's actually the 7 sources of matter that I just mentioned. And that's why, like for example, water is H2O. You have one hydrogen atom and 2 atoms of oxygen. Now, if you look at all the water in the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea and all that, it's a huge amount of hydrogen and oxygen. Where does that come from? right? It's coming from this storehouse of layers of matter that encompasses the material creation, right? So you have to store that extra matter somewhere, so that there's never any depletion of matter. And we see that, if you were going to manufacture water starting from scratch, you have to buy some hydrogen, you have to buy some oxygen, right? And then you would have to have the equipment to combine them. It requires a lot of pressure and heat to combine them to make molecules of water. And it would cost you a lot of money to do that, just to make a small amount of water. Now just imagine how Krishna has made these oceans, which is like infinite quantity of water, seemingly infinite quantity of water. So you have to understand, you try and make water, it's going to cost you a lot of money, it's going to take time and energy to do it, right? And you only make a little bit of water. And Krishna has made these oceans that are all over the world. In fact, more than 70% of the earth is water. So just like our body also, 70%, 60-70% is water. So to be able to make just water would be a daunting endeavor for a human being. So we have to study things through comparison. So you can compare a little Sputnik to the Earth. Now, the Sputnik, when they first put it up, the Russians put it up, it only lasted in orbit for 2 weeks. It only weighed 22 pounds. It cost them billions of dollars to make it, and also it required hundreds and maybe thousands of scientists and engineers to make it, right? And then they say, oh, well, yeah, but the planets and the stars, they all are being maintained without any superior intelligence involved. This is nonsense. It's complete nonsense. Your little Sputnik took so much money and so many scientists to put up into orbit, and you could only keep it 2 weeks in orbit, right? And now they think that by some fortuitous combination of matter, all these things are going on in a perfect, orderly way. The orbits of the planets and the stars, and changing of the seasons, and all these things are happened by accident. This is complete nonsense, and it's not science, it's science fiction. Okay, so then it says, the various quotations we hear from the Vedas concerning Brahman, meaning spiritual energies. Ekam eva dvitiyam Brahma. Brahman is one without a second. Neha nanasti kinchana. Besides this, nothing exists. Sarvam klav idam Brahma. Everything and everywhere is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. I am by nature Brahman. So this Vedic aphorism, Sarvam klav idam Brahma, means that everything and everywhere is Brahman, or the spiritual energy of Krishna. And matter is also spiritual energy of Krishna, right? So we see, when we look at something, we should understand it is made of matter and spirit. Now, you say, well, wait a minute, what about rocks? How can you say there's a spirit in the rock? But there is, because Krishna is present in every atom of the universe. So he's present in every atom of that rock. So either we have human beings and animals and trees and so forth, in which there's an individual soul, and there's Krishna as the Paramatma, or Supreme Soul. And then in rocks, or what you would call inanimate matter, mountains, rocks, and water and things like that, Krishna is also present. But there's no individual soul present, but Krishna is present, and the matter is present. So therefore, there's always spirit. Everything is made of spirit and matter. Okay, so that is universal vision of the presence of Krishna. So therefore, it says that all these other verses quoted in the Vedas are summarized in these two verses of Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, 6th and 7th verse. All created beings have their source in these two natures, the inferior and superior energies of the Lord. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I, Krishna, am both the origin and the dissolution. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. So this is transcendental knowledge. And basically, when you read Bhagavad Gita, it's teaching us to have this universal vision of Krishna. And that's extremely important because the materialists are trying to convince us that there's no God. There's just matter. And that is not true. There's matter and spirit. And you can see that when a person is alive, they're conscious. They talk, they can walk, they can have emotions and so forth. When the soul leaves the body is just dead matter. And we see it with our own eyes, but we refuse to accept. What's the difference between a living body and a dead body? The dead body does not have a soul present in it. And therefore, there's no source of energy. It's just like a cell phone without a battery. A cell phone without a battery is not going to work. I mean, the mechanism can work, but you have to have a source of energy. And the source of energy is the battery when it's charged. And then when your battery is not charged, your phone doesn't work. The same thing, as long as you have the eternal soul in your body, the body works. And if the soul leaves the body doesn't work anymore. Now, that's very simple, but yet these scientists, these philosophers, these materialists, these empiricists, they don't accept this. That's because they're nonsense. They're not really scientists. And they make up all kinds of theories, crazy theories to support their statements, but there's no scientific evidence of it. There's no scientific evidence that the body is just made of matter and there's no soul in it. No, they say, well, no, we can't see the soul, therefore we don't accept it. But wait a minute, 100 years ago, nobody knew about electromagnetic waves, or let's say 150 years ago. No one knew about electromagnetic waves carrying messages, carrying images and everything. Today, no one would deny it. And that's something you can't see. Like right now, there are electromagnetic waves going through this room, and they're coming, and your cell phone is working right now, right? How is it working? Somehow or other, it's picking up these electromagnetic waves that are carrying images and sound and so forth. So no one would deny it today. But 150 years ago, everyone would have denied it, you see. So therefore, these so-called scientists and philosophers are denying today that there's no such thing as a spiritual world, there's no such thing as God. It's because they're blind. And their blindness is caused by their enviousness of God, you see. So, just like when there's a stubborn person, just like someone will say, oh, well, Trump lost the election, we have proof of it. But then someone else said, well, no, he was cheated. He didn't lose the election. He actually won the election, but he was cheated. So you have 2 points of view, right? Now, which one is correct? So you would have to do some research to find out which one is correct. So the scientists today are saying there's no such thing as spirit or a soul. If there is a soul, it's made of matter. See? And the spiritualists are saying, no, matter is different than the soul. The soul is eternally existent. Matter is also eternally existent, but the source of energy that makes matter work or move is spirit. It's spiritual. Without the spiritual aspect, matter would be without any animation. And that's true, because when the soul leaves the body becomes inanimate. Right? And nature and matter does not organize itself. I mean, let's say you want to buy a house, you want to build a house, you buy all the ingredients or all the matter to build a house. So you have cement, and you have wood, and you have this thing and that thing, and you take it all to the property in which you want to build the house, and then you wait for the matter to organize itself. You think it's going to organize itself? No. Unless you have people with intelligence that come and organize the matter, you'll never have a house built. You'll have the materials for it, but not put together into a house. And obviously there's electricity, there's wires, there's plumbing, there's all these different aspects of the house. It doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't, and matter does not organize itself. You can do any experiment you want with matter to organize itself, and it won't do it. See? You have to have an intelligent person organizing it. This is a simple thing to understand, but the scientists don't understand it, and many philosophers don't understand it. So and you're dealing with people who are so envious that even though the truth is right in their face, they refuse to acknowledge it. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita also it says, as far, and this is the 14th chapter, verse number 16, as far as the mode of ignorance is concerned, the performer is without knowledge, and therefore all his or her activities result in present misery, and afterwards he or she will go on toward animal life. Animal life is always miserable, although under the spell of the illusory energy, Maya, or illusion, the animals do not understand this. So, if we take this statement, we can clearly say that all these scientists and philosophers are animals. They're not human beings. They're animals because they refuse to accept the truth that's right in their face, and they refuse to accept it. They're trying to say that matter, there's no such thing as spirit, there's only matter. And matter organizes itself in an orderly fashion. This is complete nonsense. The animal killers do not know that in the future the animal, it says, animal life is always miserable, although under the spell of the illusory energy, Maya, the animals do not understand this. Slaughtering poor animals is also due to the mode of ignorance. The animal killers do not know that in the future the animal will have a body suitable to kill them. That is the law of nature. In human society, if one kills a man, he has to be hanged. That is the law of the state. Because of ignorance, people do not perceive that there is a complete state controlled by the Supreme Lord. Every living creature is a son of the Supreme Lord, and he does not tolerate even an ant's being killed. One has to pay for it. So indulgence in animal killing for the taste of the tongue is the grossest kind of ignorance. A human being has no need to kill animals because God has supplied so many nice things to eat. If one indulges in meat eating anyway, it is to be understood that he is acting in ignorance and is making his future very dark. Of all kinds of animal killing, the killing of cows is most vicious because the cow gives us all kinds of pleasure by supplying milk. Cow slaughter is an act of the grossest type of ignorance. In the Vedic literature, Rig Veda 9.4.64, the words Gobi Prinita Matsaram indicate that one who, being fully satisfied by milk, is desirous of killing the cow is in the grossest ignorance. There is also a prayer in the Vedic literature that says, Namo Brahmanya Devaya, Go Brahmana Hitayacha, Jagatitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. And translation is, my Lord, Krishna, you are the well-wisher of the cows and the brahmanas, or saintly persons. And you are the well-wisher of the entire human society and world. Vishnu Purana 1.19.65. The purport, or the meaning, is that special mention is given in this prayer for the protection of the cows and the brahmanas, meaning cows and saintly persons. Brahmanas are the symbol of spiritual education, and cows are the symbol of the most valuable food, milk. These two living creatures, the brahmanas and the cows, must be given all protection. That is real advancement of civilization. In modern human society, spiritual knowledge is neglected, and cow killing is encouraged. It is to be understood, then, that human society is advancing in the wrong direction and is clearing the path to its own condemnation. A civilization which guides the citizens to become animals in their next life is certainly not a human civilization. The present human civilization is, of course, grossly misled by the modes of passion and ignorance. It is a very dangerous age, and all nations should take care to provide the easiest process, Krishna consciousness, to save humanity from the greatest danger. What's the greatest danger? In next life, you have the body of an animal after having the body of a human being, and being completely under the grip of the illusory energy and suffering all the time. I mean, animals suffer. Like, you look at lions and tigers, they don't eat every day because they got to catch something to eat it, right? And do you think the animals are willingly being caught by them? No, no way. It's always a struggle, and whenever they do kill something, they hide it somewhere and they eat it little by little, right? So you see the life of they don't go to a restaurant and eat oysters and steaks and things like that. There's no such thing. They have to catch the prey, and they don't catch something to eat every day. So they have a tough life, actually, and there's a lot of competition. Like, for example, oftentimes when a male lion sees a female who already has baby cubs, he'll kill the cubs because they're not from his fatherhood. And he'll kill the cubs, and then he'll connect with that female lioness and produce his own cubs. So then if another lion is looking to get married, or looking for a mate, and he comes upon the territory of this lion, who has now his cubs, they'll have a fight, and if the wandering lion wins, then he'll kill the cubs of the previous lion and make his own. So nature is very, very, it's full of misery. All kinds of strange things happening that we don't really realize in the struggle for existence. Okay, so what time is it now? It's 7:15? Yeah. So are there any questions?
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So when Jesus resurrected, the body was kept, but it's no longer able to sustain the soul, right? And then he comes back. So does it mean like a soul has the power to resurrect the body? Or?
Well, first of all, the Christians definitely say that he died on the cross. So he didn't do some type of subterfuge, or he pretended to die, and then they threw him into the cave. And then he was actually still alive, but he went maybe into samadhi or something. No, the Christians definitely say he died, right? But when he resurrected in a spiritual body, right? And so people didn't believe it. There was this one of his disciples. He had 12 disciples, but one was called Doubting Thomas. So Doubting Thomas, he didn't believe that. So he wanted to actually stick his finger into the wound that killed Jesus. And he did it. And he saw that, there was a wound there, an injury there. He was able to put his finger into the ribs of the body of the Lord. And then, he was like shocked. That's why you call him a Doubting Thomas, right? So, no, he resurrected in some kind of a spiritual body. He walked around for 40 days. For 40 days he walked around talking to his disciples, trying to convince them to get serious, and probably scared the hell out of them, But and then they actually saw him go up the sky into some heaven, right? And they witnessed all that. Now, after that, he had instructed them that they would have to go to different parts of the known world at that time and spread Krishna consciousness. Now, then, as now, people were speaking different languages, right? So somebody had to go to Rome, somebody had to go to Syria, somebody had to go to Persia, and they were all speaking different languages. So the apostles were worried. So how are we going to do this? We have to learn all these different languages. There was Hebrew, there was Aramaic, there was Greek, and so forth. So when they were praying to God, how will we do this? These languages came down from heaven into their minds, and now they began to speak different languages, and then they went out. So these are all, you might say, well, this is all just, fantasy, it's like Walt Disney movie or something, But on the other hand, you have to accept that these supernatural things were happening. They experienced them, and they became very successful without cell phones, without television, without publicity, spreading Christianity and convincing people that Jesus died on the cross and resurrected. You have to believe that he was born by immaculate conception. In other words, there was no husband and wife connecting. There was no plumbing involved in his birth. He had a miraculous birth in the womb of Mother Mary. So these are things you have to accept if you want to be a Christian. You have to believe them. Just like there's things that we have to believe that seem to be, impossible, like Krishna being very far away, but yet he's in every atom of the universe. But when we don't accept that Krishna has infinite powers, we remain an atheist. If we accept that Krishna has infinite powers, then we begin to believe these things. That's it. So this leap of faith is what people have to do in order to come to spiritual understanding. Now, why should there be a leap of faith? Well, because every one of us has 4 defects. We make mistakes. We're easily illusioned. Our senses are limited and imperfect, and we have a cheating propensity. So if we just rely on our own, let's say, perception of things, we will get things wrong because of those 4 defects. So therefore, if we accept the words of genuine saints, like Vyasadeva and Narada Muni and so forth, that will help us save a lot of time and avoid making a lot of mistakes. Right? So just like if you ask your mother, oh, by the way, Mommy, who's my father? Well, she can tell you, but if you ask the neighbor, who's my father, the neighbor doesn't know, right? Or if you ask someone to do a DNA test of every man in the world, well, that would not happen, right? So you would never find out. But if your mother could tell you right away who your father is, right? So we see if we accept the words of saintly persons like Vyasadeva, Narada Muni, and Srila Prabhupada, and so forth, we save a lot of time and a lot of searching around and reading this book and that book. I remember before I met the devotees, I was searching to find out what is the purpose of life, and I read many different books, and most of the books I read were nonsense. Like, I read the Tibetan Book of the Dead. And I mean, it didn't really help me, although it's supposed to be a very profound book. It tells you basically how you can choose what your next life is going to be, and body and so forth. But it didn't make any influence. There was no influence on me from that book, even though it's supposed to be very profound. And then I used to read books on philosophy. Those were the most confusing books. I never understood anything, And then it's only when I heard the Bhagavad Gita explained to me by devotees that things made sense. And I was ready to accept it because I realized that on my own I would never be able to figure out what is, the best thing I could do in my life. So but if someone is intoxicated always with the desire to make money and have sense gratification, they're not interested in finding out these questions. And if they hear something, it's boring for them. They want to hear how they can make more money, how to flip houses or buy real estate or invest in the stock market or get bitcoins or, those things they're interested in. They're not interested in spiritual knowledge, right? Because they don't see how it will increase their sense gratification. Well, of course, that's true. If you develop spiritual knowledge, it'll decrease your sense gratification. So their goal is to have more and more sense gratification, like the Harvey Weinsteins and the Jeffrey Epsteins and all the Steins. They want more and more sense gratification, more and more money. So studying Bhagavad Gita is not going to help them to do that. Okay. So any other questions? Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, there are 2 online questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Hare Krishna Maharaj.
That means Rakesh came back. And
No,
his wife
Maharaj.
came back.
Someone else is asking. So Hare Krishna Maharaj, when a person dies, does the individual soul leave the body while the Paramatma stays with the body? Or does the Paramatma also leave the body? Doesn't all matter have to have Paramatma within it?
Okay, so first of all, the soul doesn't die. Only the body dies, right? So, and Krishna doesn't die. He's super soul. So Krishna, and see, this is where you get confused because he has mutually contradictory qualities. So, therefore, he can remain in every atom of that body, even though those atoms, even though all the atoms are not going to dissipate. They're going to break away from the original body and go back into nature. So earth to earth, water to water, and so forth. So how can this be? So in the case of the soul definitely leaves the body. In the case of Krishna, he is present in every atom of that body, right? But now that body is going to disintegrate, and those atoms are going to separate, right? Go back into nature. So in that sense, Krishna is in the body and he's outside the body at the same time, because he has these infinite powers, and he can infinitely expand himself. But our individual soul is definitely leaving the body. So at the moment of death, it leaves the body. It's going to be If it doesn't want to leave the body, Yamaraj comes and yanks it away. So, but every one of the atoms in that body have the super soul present, but they're going to now disintegrate and go back into nature. So that's the explanation.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, there is a second question. Hare Krishna Maharaj, do the plants also have an individual soul and Paramatma?
Yes.
What kind of sin are we committing when we pluck fruits from a tree?
Well, if you pluck the fruit and eat it without offering to Krishna, that's a sin. If you pluck the fruit and offer it to Krishna and wait for him to eat it or accept it, and then he gives it back as his prasadam, there's no sin. So just like Prahlad Maharaj, even though his father and mother offered him poisoned food, he offered it to Krishna. And when he ate it, he didn't die, because he offered it first to the Lord. So, therefore, we should never eat anything without offering it first to the Lord. So, this person say, well, wait a minute. You put the food on a plate. You put the plate on the altar in front of Krishna. And then you waited, you said some prayers, then you waited a little bit, then you took it back. How can you say Krishna ate the food? The food is still there on the plate. Right? That means that sounds like a logical question, logical conclusion. But this is explained in the 9th chapter, 26th verse in the purport, where it says, the impersonalist philosophers who wish to maintain that the absolute truth is without senses cannot comprehend this verse of Bhagavad Gita. Which verse it is? 9th chapter, 26th verse. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhakta prayachti tadham bhakti aparatam aslami prayatatmanha, where Krishna says, offer me with love and devotion a leaf, a fruit, flower, and water, and I will accept it. So then it says, to them, meaning the impersonalists, it is either a metaphor or proof of the mundane character of Krishna, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita. But in actuality, Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, has senses, and it is stated that his senses are interchangeable. In other words, one sense can perform the function of any other sense. This is what it means to say that God, or that Krishna is absolute. Lacking senses, he could hardly be considered full in all opulences. In the 7th chapter, Krishna has explained that he impregnates living entities into material nature. This is done by his looking upon material nature. And so, in this instance, Krishna's hearing the devotee's words of love in offering foodstuffs is wholly identical with his eating and actually tasting. This point should be emphasized because of his absolute position. His hearing is wholly identical with his eating and tasting. Only the devotee who accepts Krishna as he describes himself without interpretation can understand that the Supreme Absolute Truth can eat food and enjoy it. So simply by hearing the prayers of the devotee, offering the food to Krishna, Krishna tastes the food and digests it, and then offers it back. So, why? Because all of Krishna's senses are able to perform the functions of all the other senses. He can eat with his leg. He can eat just by looking at something. He can eat just by hearing the prayers of the devotee. Now, we don't have that power. So, because we don't have it, we might say, well, I don't believe it. Because I can't do it, I don't believe it. But Krishna has that power. Now, either you believe it or you don't believe it, right? But if you eat prasadam only, it'll change your life, no doubt about it. Because it's been touched by Krishna. Okay, so that's 9th chapter, 26th verse, in the last paragraph. It explains how Krishna actually eats and offers the offering back to the devotee as prasadam. So if you don't drink, if you just drink Coca-Cola or you drink, wine, you're not going to understand any of this. But if you drink milk, then it develops the finer tissues of the mind. Then you can understand this higher order philosophical points. Some people say, "Wait a minute, that's just nonsense." I mean, how can you eat by just hearing? Well, no, you can't. That's for sure you can't. But that doesn't mean Krishna can't. Just like a man who has eyes is walking down the street with a friend of his who's blind, and the man says, "Oh, the sun is shining so nicely today." And the blind man says, "I don't believe it." He said, "Why not?" He said, "Well, I can't see it, therefore I don't believe it." Well, okay, just because he can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, you see. And he doesn't have the eyes to see, but somebody else has the eyes to see. So in the same way, you develop the eyes to see the truth about Krishna by getting purified through chanting and eating prasadam. And those are the two main things in Krishna consciousness: eating only prasadam and chanting purely the holy name of Krishna without any material desires. Then everything, your ability to understand these higher order principles becomes possible. Okay. And if you don't do those things, you watch television, you go to the casino, you drink beer, you watch baseball, you put your baseball hat on backwards, you're not going to understand anything, right? Because of all those bad habits, right? Haribol.
So another one where some people ask why we cannot offer foodstuffs made with onion and garlic to Krishna, because he also created onion and garlic.
Well, because onion and garlic are in the mode of passion and ignorance. And we eat sattvic food in the mode of goodness. And Krishna explains what those sattvic foods are. There's grains, and there are lentils, and there's milk, and there's fruits, and nuts, and natural sugars like honey or jaggery. So those are the foods in the mode of goodness. And meat and fish and mussels and clams and all those. If you eat these, what do you call those? It's sort of considered a delicacy to eat clams, right? But if you don't put some sauce on it, it tastes like mucus and has the same texture as mucus, right? Right. I don't know if you ever ate one of those things. I unfortunately did. But if you don't, you have to put some sauce on it. Otherwise, it tastes and feels exactly like mucus. And people eat that. One time I ate lobster. I went to Cape Cod, where that's famous to eat lobster in Cape Cod. So I thought it was going to be a delicacy, right? So, and they bring the whole lobster out. It looks like a demon already, right? But it's dead, fortunately. How do they kill it? They throw it into boiling water, and it dies right away, in that boiling water. Anyway, and then you have to have this like a nutcracker to crack the shells of the lobster, and then you take whatever's on the inside and eat it. Well, this was a whole lobster, right? Exactly intact. And they give it to you, and it's considered a delicacy, right? So I was eating it. At one point, the taste became really strange, I was trying to think, what is this, Then I realized I was eating what was in the intestine of the lobster, the stool of the lobster, because they give you the whole lobster, They didn't tell me that, Usually, if you go into the Safeway and buy lobster, they give you just the meaty part, the white meaty part. You don't have the shell and everything. But in Cape Cod, they'll give you the whole lobster, including the intestines and the crap inside the intestines. And people eat the whole thing. So, see, there's very, very low class, and it's basically you're eating stool. But if you put sauce on it or some kind of dressing, then you don't notice it so much, right? Just like in France, they eat snails. It's a delicacy, but a snail again. But they put this dressing on it, So if you eat just the snail, it's like eating mucus, and it has no taste at all. I mean, it tastes strange because but they put so much sauce on it that you don't notice, the mucusy texture and the bad taste of it. So therefore, in France, the name of a chef cook, is called a saucier, meaning one who makes sauces. Because without the sauces, what they're giving you to eat has no taste, or it tastes bad. But when you put enough sauce on it, it tastes good because you're tasting the sauce. Just like, even in Indian cooking, they have chutneys, right? So if you just eat something, sometimes it doesn't have much of a taste, but you put the chutney on it, it has a taste, right? Or you put the achar, then it has a taste, right? But if you just eat plain rice with nothing on it, right, it doesn't really have much of a taste. Right? If you don't put salt in it and you don't put something, some dal or something, it doesn't have much of a taste. Right? So the same thing they do with all these bad things like mussels and clams and lobsters and things like that. They have a sauce that you put on it so you have some taste and masks the bad taste of the meat also. Like I remember when I was a kid, whenever my mother would give me meat, I had to put ketchup on it. I couldn't eat it without ketchup because without ketchup it didn't have any taste. So you see, this is, and like for example, they sell ants. It's as a candy, but they cover it with chocolate. So when you eat the ant covered by chocolate, you don't notice the ant at all, right? But if they just eat the ants, then you would say, ugh, I don't want to eat that, So this is what's happening. They chocolate coat the things that are really disgusting, and then people don't understand, what they're eating. They just go ahead and eat it because they're tasting the chocolate. They're not actually tasting the disgusting thing. Haribol. They do the same thing in philosophy. They use big words that you don't understand, and you think, oh my God, this is really nice, this is high philosophy. But those big words, you don't really understand what all those big words are, and you just think, well, it must be good. Haribol. Were you able to correct? Go ahead.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma
Bandho mohi savadana mate
Bandho mohi savadana mate
Jahara prasade vai e bhava toriya jai Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoyte
Krishna prapti hoya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriyai Kya Adana Koriyo Mane Asham Shri Guru Charane Rati Aise Uttama Gati Je prasade pure sarva asha Chakshudan dilo je janme janme prabhu se Divya Gyan Hriday Prakashito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasha Jaite Vede Gai Jahara Charito Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokenath Lokera Jivana Haha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Pada Chaya Ebejas Goshek Tribhuvana Prabhupada Patita Pavana Jaya Prabhupada 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 Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Tarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Gadadara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajagata Statara Satara Sri Sri Srimad Divine Grace Bhakt A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Salkunda Radha Kunda Vrindavan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premananda. All glories to his simple devotees. All glories to his simple. All glories to his simple devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Bhavana Ki Jai. Namo Vishnu Padaya. The lotus feet of our spiritual master is
the only way we should attain pure devotional service. I bow to the lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By His grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from His lotus mouth. Attachment to His lotus feet is a perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From Him ecstatic prema emanates. By him ignorance is destroyed. Weak scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds.
We take shelter of your lotus feet, Srila Prabhupada, Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya. Namaste. Saraswati. Let's get you this attorney.